possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Second Lieutenant Cecil Frank Carson. Cecil Carson was born in 1894 in Greenock, Western Australia. He was the second eldest of 5 children, born to Henry Carson, a draper, and his wife, Mary. Cecil grew up in Geraldton and was educated at the local state school where he was an active member of the cadets. On completion of his schooling, Cecil began working as an apprentice surveyor, while also serving time in the local militia. When the First World War broke out in 1914, he was working as a bank clerk. Cecil Carson enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 18th of January 1916. With his experience in the militia, he was assigned the rank of sergeant before being allocated to B Company of the 44th Infantry Battalion. After a short period of training, he embarked from Fremantle on the 6th of June aboard the troop ship Swavic. Once in England, he continued his training before he and his comrades made their way to the Western Front in France at the end of November. With the onset of a bitterly cold winter, they spent their time alternating between training behind the lines and duty in the trenches. In January 1917, German forces withdrew to the fortified Hindenburg Line, followed by Allied forces. Carson was selected for additional training until the 11th of March, just in time to take part in a raid on enemy positions at Armentières in northern France. The attack ended in disaster, costing the 44th Battalion more than 60 casualties. An enemy counterattack only increased the casualty toll. Following this bungled raid, Carson's unit moved into the trenches of Belgium, taking up positions around Ploegsteert in Belgium. In June, Carson and his comrades took part in the Allied attack on Mézine Ridge, after which he was promoted to acting company sergeant major. He stayed in Belgium until August, when he was selected for officer cadet training in England. He was commissioned second lieutenant in mid-December. When he rejoined his unit in January 1918, the fighting at Ypres was far from finished. The enemy launched a major offensive to force a breakthrough and end the war. The 44th Battalion, which had been serving in Belgium, was rushed south to France to help block the enemy's drive towards the vital railway junction of Amiens. In April, Carson and his men relieved the 42nd Battalion in the front lines and were subjected to heavy shelling from artillery and attacks from enemy aircraft. On the 4th of April 1918, the enemy started a very heavy bombardment, followed by an attack at about 9 a.m. From a nearby ridge, they could enfilade the gully in which the headquarters was situated. Several hours later, 2 of the enemy were seen approaching the 44th position, and Carson and 2 of his men went in pursuit to capture them. As he was seizing the prisoners, Carson was shot through the groin and killed. His commanding officer wrote to Carson's parents, "It is with deep regret that I have to revive the sad thoughts of the death of your son, Lieutenant Carson, both popular and respected by all in the 44th Battalion. However, it is some consolation to know that he died leading his men in a great cause and suffered no pain, being killed instantaneously." The Carson family would suffer another devastating blow some weeks later when their second son, Vivian, was also killed in action. Second Lieutenant Cecil Frank Carson was 23 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Second Lieutenant Cecil Frank Carson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.